At my son's birthday party, my granddaughter grabbed my arm with a panicked urgency. "Grandpa, we have to leave. Now," she insisted. I was startled. "Why?" I asked. "Just go, please," she pleaded. I chose to trust her, and that decision saved me from a terrible, calculated act by my own son and his wife. You wouldn't believe the scheme they had prepared. Before we continue, please consider subscribing to the channel. Dad, I need you to hear me out this time, without making any snap judgments. Scott burst through my front door, without bothering to knock. His self-assurance felt overly practiced, like a speech he'd rehearsed in the car. I slowly took off my reading glasses, folded the evening newspaper, and set it down. The leather armchair groaned as I sat up. "Good evening to you too, son." My voice held the authority of a 70-year-old contractor, a man who had dealt with impossible promises for decades. What is so urgent that it couldn't wait for a proper greeting? He began pacing toward my antique bookshelf, then spun back, his hands moving wildly. "This is it, Dad. The opportunity I've been waiting for. A commercial property syndicate with guaranteed, incredible returns." I stood and moved with deliberate steps to my filing cabinet. Scott's eyes followed nervously as I pulled out a manila folder marked Scott Investments 2019 to 2025. "Guaranteed, you say?" I spread the documents across my coffee table. 15% returns, perhaps? Maybe 20. "Dad, this is completely different. Like the Coastal Plaza condos were different." I retrieved a receipt. $75,000 vanished in 3 months when your guaranteed rental income turned into a foreclosure notice. Scott's jaw tightened. His confident posture crumbled as he recognized a stack of papers. Bank statements, contracts, canceled checks, a chronicle of spectacular failures. "You never trust me," his voice rose, echoing off the hardwood floors. "Every time I try to build something, you sabotage it with your negativity." I opened a second folder. "And the quantum mining rig? $50,000 to a scammer you met online for equipment that never arrived." "That was different," he protested. I continued shuffling papers. "The gourmet cart venture, with a partner who was a convicted felon? $30,000 in startup costs, and it lasted exactly 93 days. Scott's face flushed deep red. He grabbed his jacket from the couch with a sharp, angry movement. "You are impossible. This syndicate has real buildings, real investors, real returns." "Show me the documentation." "I don't have it with me." "But then, you don't have my money either." The silence that followed felt like a chasm. Outside, evening shadows crept across my lawn. A neighbor's dog barked somewhere down Oakwood Avenue. Scott's shoulders sagged for a moment, then he squared them again. "Fine. When this deal makes millions without you, don't come crawling back, asking for your cut." He stormed toward the door, his footsteps heavy on my solid oak floors. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle my windows. Through the glass, I watched him fumble with his car keys, his earlier bravado completely gone. The engine roared to life with unnecessary force. Gravel scattered as he backed down my driveway too fast, the tires squealing slightly. Red taillights glowed, angry in the gathering dusk, as his car vanished around the corner. I remained standing by the window, watching the empty street long after the sound of his engine faded. The house fell hollow, filled only with the echoes of Ray's voices and the slamming door. I went to the kitchen. My feet followed a familiar path across the creaking floorboards. The coffee ritual helped. Grinding the beans, measuring the water, the steady drip that filled the evening silence. 40 years of running Arthur Vance Construction had taught me that some conversations required coffee afterward, even when conducted alone. Steam rose from my mug as I carried it to my study. The filing cabinet drawer opened with a metallic whisper. The manila folders emerged in chronological order, each one a lesson Scott refused to learn. The Coastal Plaza condos first. The prospectus had looked slick, featuring pristine condominiums overlooking a beautiful bay. Scott was 34 then, still optimistic about quick wealth. The developer vanished with investor money before breaking ground. $75,000 gone. I spread the quantum mining rig documents across my desk. mining equipment that existed only in online advertisements. The scammer's website had looked professional until it disappeared overnight, taking $50,000 with it. The gourmet cart venture came next. Scott's plan had actually impressed me initially. Locally sourced ingredients, a prime downtown location. Then I discovered his partner's criminal history. Embezzlement. Scott dismissed my concerns as paranoia. 3 months later, the partner disappeared with the cart and the remaining startup funds. The coffee cooled in my mug as I reviewed bank statements documenting casino bailouts. Small amounts at first, 500 here, 1,000 there. The requests increased after his marriage to Eliza, just until my next commission check became his standard plea. Each folder told the same story, Scott's eternal optimism colliding with harsh reality. But tonight felt different. His anger had been sharper, more desperate. The way he avoided eye contact, the vague answers about documentation. These were classic signs I'd learned to recognize from decades of screening contractors. I thought about Eliza's influence. Before her, Scott's schemes had been smaller. She encouraged his grandiose thinking, pushing him toward bigger risks. Her increasingly expensive taste required increasingly expensive solutions. The study lamp cast a warm light across nearly $200,000 of financial wreckage spanning 6 years. Each time, I'd hoped this would be his learning moment. Each time, he convinced me the next opportunity would be different. But enabling him wasn't helping. Every rescue only delayed his reckoning with reality. I gathered the papers methodically, returning each folder to its proper place. The filing cabinet closed with finality. Outside my window, streetlights flickered on, illuminating empty sidewalks. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight's decision felt right. Sometimes the greatest kindness was simply saying no. I turned off the desk lamp and headed upstairs, leaving the study in darkness. Morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen window as I folded my grocery list into my wallet. The confrontation with Scott felt like a distant, necessary storm that had passed. The simple pleasure of routine tasks awaited. I grabbed my reusable shopping bags from the pantry hook, checked my car keys, and headed for the front door. The morning air carried the scent of Doris Peterson's lilacs next door. Perfect spring weather for errands. My stride faltered halfway down the brick walkway. Something was wrong with my sedan. The car sat lower than normal, tilted at an odd angle, resting almost on its rims. All 4 tires were completely flat. My stomach dropped as I approached the silver vehicle. This wasn't gradual deflation. Each tire showed identical puncture marks near the sidewall, small, precise holes that could only have been made deliberately. I knelt beside the front passenger tire, running my finger around the rubber. A metallic object protruded from the puncture, a roofing nail, the same type I kept in my workshop for emergency repairs. Walking around the vehicle, I found the pattern repeated on each wheel. For nails, for tires, for precise acts of vandalism committed sometime between midnight and dawn. The timeline crystallized in my mind. Last night's argument, Scott's explosive anger, his parting threat, and now this. Professional sabotage delivered under cover of darkness. I pulled out my phone and dialed Scott's number. He answered on the 3rd ring, his voice thick with sleep. "Dad, what's wrong?" "It's barely 9 o'clock. "Son, I found my tires damaged this morning. All 4 of them punctured." A pause. When Scott spoke again, his tone shifted to concerned sympathy. "Dad, that's terrible. Probably neighborhood kids. You know how they get during spring break." All 4 tires, Scott. A professional job. Nails driven in at exactly the right angle to ensure maximum damage. I waited. Are you accusing me of something?" The hurt in his voice sounded genuine, but I'd heard Scott lie before. About his gambling losses, his failed investments, his promises to change. "Just checking if you saw anything unusual when you left last night." "Strange cars, people walking around." I drove straight home. "Dad, look, I know we had words yesterday, but I would never. This is vandalism. You should call the police." Should I? What proof did I have beyond timing and suspicion? Scott's denial was convincing, and an accusation could destroy what remained of our relationship permanently. "I'll handle it through insurance," I said finally. Thanks for the concern. Dad, wait. I'm sorry about yesterday. About everything. We both said things. Let's discuss it later, son. I need call the roadside service. The operator estimated 45 minutes for a tow truck. I hung up and stared at my crippled vehicle, feeling suddenly older than my 70 years. Had I been wrong about Scott? The voice on the phone had carried shock and sympathy. Maybe some random vandals had targeted my car. Maybe the timing was coincidental. But 40 years of construction work had taught me to recognize patterns. And this pattern pointed toward one conclusion I didn't want to accept. I gathered my shopping bags and headed back toward the house. The grocery trip would have to wait. When the mechanic finally arrived, he confirmed what I already knew. For professionally punctured tires, $800 in damage. Later that afternoon, I was at home with a turkey sandwich and yesterday's newspaper, trying to focus on the sports section instead of the growing suspicion in my gut. The phone rang as I reached for my coffee mug. Scott's name appeared on the caller ID. Hey, Dad, how's your day going? His voice carried a forced brightness. No mention of our morning conversation about the tires. No reference to yesterday's argument. It's been interesting, I replied carefully. Spent the morning at Central Auto Service. Oh, right, the vandalism thing. That really stinks. Listen, I'm calling with good news, though. Tomorrow's my 40th birthday, and Eliza's planned something special. I set down my sandwich. Scott's 40th. In all the recent drama, I'd completely forgotten. Nothing fancy, he continued. Just a family dinner at 6 o'clock. Clara will be there, and a few close friends. It would mean a lot to have you there, Dad. The invitation caught me off guard. After yesterday's explosive confrontation and this morning's tire incident, I had expected silence, not a cheerful party invitation. That's thoughtful of you to invite me, I said, testing the waters. Come on, Dad. I know we don't always see eye to eye on financial stuff, but we're family. Clara specifically asked if Grandpa would come. She's excited to see you. The mention of my granddaughter stirred something protective in my chest. Clara had always been the bright spot, untainted by her parents' dramas. If she wanted me there, how could I refuse? What should I bring? I asked, just yourself. Eliza's handling everything. Food, decorations, the whole works. She's really gone all out this year. That explained the expense. Eliza's all out typically meant costs that would strain Scott's already precarious finances. But for once, that wasn't my problem to solve. Of course, I'll be there. 6 o'clock sharp. Fantastic. Oh, and Dad, thanks for not making a big deal about yesterday. I was stressed about work stuff. Took it out on you unfairly. The apology sounded genuine, tinged with the vulnerability I remembered from Scott's childhood. Maybe I had misjudged the tire situation. Maybe he was genuinely trying to repair our relationship. Water under the bridge. Son, see you tomorrow. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen, feeling cautiously optimistic. A birthday celebration offered a chance to bridge the gap that had opened between us. Clara would be there, and Scott might be in a better mood. I finished my sandwich while considering gift options. Something thoughtful but practical. The afternoon stretched ahead peacefully. Tomorrow's party had given me something positive to anticipate instead of dwelling on punctured tires and family tensions. The next day, as the taxi pulled away from Scott's house, I stepped out onto the brick walkway, holding the carefully wrapped gift. The evening air carried the aroma of barbecue and laughter from the backyard. Through the front windows, I could see more guests than I expected for a simple family dinner. Scott appeared at the front door before I could knock, his face bright with what seemed like genuine enthusiasm. Dad, you made it. Come in, come in. The house had been transformed. Where I remembered modest furnishings, expensive-looking decorations now adorned every surface. Crystal glasses caught the light from a new chandelier I'd never seen before. The spread of food visible through the kitchen doorway looked professionally catered. Happy birthday, son. I handed him the gift, a quality tool set I'd selected after careful consideration. 40 years. Hard to believe. Thanks, Dad. This means everything. Scott's smile faltered for just a moment. Something unreadable flickered across his face. Eliza, Dad's here. She emerged from the kitchen wearing an elegant dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Arthur, so wonderful you could make it. Let me introduce you to everyone. The living room buzzed with conversation. Young professionals I didn't recognize mingled with wine glasses, discussing careers and investments. The alcohol selection was impressive. Premium brands that Scott definitely couldn't afford on his sales income. Grandpa. Clara's voice cut through the crowd. She rushed over, wrapping me in a hug that felt like the most genuine greeting I'd received all evening. I'm so glad you came. Wouldn't miss your father's birthday, sweetheart. How's college treating you? Finals are next week, but I'm managing. Want me to get you something to drink? Dad, stock your favorite beer. Scott materialized beside us with an imported bottle I recognized from expensive restaurants. Remember this one, Dad? You ordered at that steakhouse in Riverton last year. I accepted the beer, touched that he'd remembered such a small detail. Maybe his invitation had been sincere after all. Maybe the tire incident really had been random vandalism, and I'd been too quick to suspect my own son. The evening progressed with surprising warmth. Scott's friends included me in their conversations. Eliza kept my glass filled, appearing beside me whenever it emptied with a fresh drink and a bright smile. This is quite a spread, I commented during dinner, gesturing at the array of catered dishes. Must have cost a fortune. Scott waved dismissively. Eliza's been saving for months. She wanted this birthday to be special. But the math didn't add up. The catering alone would have cost thousands, not counting the alcohol, decorations, and new furniture. Where had they found the money for such extravagance when Scott had been begging me for investment capital just days earlier? Another wine, Arthur? Eliza appeared with a bottle of Cabernet that likely cost more than my weekly grocery budget. This pairs beautifully with the beef. I nodded, feeling the warm buzz of alcohol beginning to soften my edges. The evening's contradiction seemed less important now, overshadowed by the simple pleasure of a family celebration. The wine was exceptional, smooth and rich. As the evening wore on, I found myself relaxing completely. But something continued to nag at me. Scott kept checking his watch. Eliza's smiles, while warm, never quite reached her eyes. And whenever I glanced around, I caught them exchanging meaningful looks when they thought I wasn't watching. The party moved into its third hour with no signs of winding down. I settled into Scott's new leather armchair, another expensive addition I didn't remember from previous visits. My earlier suspicions about tire vandalism and mysterious expenses felt distant and unimportant. Scott appeared at my elbow with another drink. Dad, how about I show you the renovations upstairs? We've done some amazing work on the master suite. Now, I glanced around at the ongoing party. Shouldn't you be with your guests? Come on, I want to show you what we've accomplished. His insistence struck me as odd. But before I could respond, Eliza materialized on my other side. Oh, yes, Arthur, you simply must see the new bathroom fixtures. We spared no expense. There was that phrase again, no expense spared, from people who supposedly couldn't afford basic living costs without my financial assistance. As I started to rise from the armchair, Clara suddenly appeared beside me, her face pale and her eyes wide with fear. Grandpa, she whispered, gripping my arm with surprising intensity. You need to leave right now. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. What? Please. Her voice carried an urgency that cut through my wine-induced haze. Just go. Trust me, something's wrong. Scott stepped closer, his smile never wavering. Clara, what are you talking about? Grandpa was just about to see the upstairs. No, he wasn't. Clara's grip tightened. Grandpa, please, you have to go home. The desperation in my granddaughter's voice sobered me instantly. In 19 years, I'd never seen Clara look frightened. This was raw terror. I think I should listen to my granddaughter, I said, beginning to stand. It's getting late anyway. Dad, don't be ridiculous. Scott's cheerful facade cracked slightly. The party's just getting started. We haven't even cut the cake yet. Where are you going, Arthur? Eliza's voice carried a sharp edge despite her continued smile. You can't leave before we've properly celebrated. Something in their coordinated response triggered an alarm I'd learned to trust over 40 years in business. When two people work this hard to keep you somewhere, it usually means you need to be somewhere else. I'm feeling a bit tired, I said, extracting myself from the chair, despite their hovering presence. Age catching up with me. Just one more drink, Scott pressed. I have a special bottle I've been saving. Another time, son. I moved toward the front door, but Scott stepped into my path. Dad, really? Clara's just being dramatic. College stress, you know how it is. Clara made a sound that might have been a sob. When I looked at her, tears were starting to form in her eyes. That decided it. Thank you for a lovely evening, I said firmly, stepping around Scott toward the coat closet. I'll call you tomorrow. But Dad, tomorrow... Trevor. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the front door. Behind me, I heard heated whispers between Scott and Eliza, too low to make out words, but urgent enough to confirm Clara's warning had been justified. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped outside, clearing away the last of the wine's fog. I pulled out my phone and called a taxi, then turned back toward the house. Through the window, I could see Clara watching me, her face a mixture of relief and worry. She pressed her hand against the glass in what looked like a goodbye. Whatever danger she sensed, I trusted her instincts completely. When the taxi lights came around the corner, I decided to call her to get a full explanation. The taxi pulled away from the curb as I fumbled for my phone. My hands trembled slightly, whether from the alcohol or the adrenaline of escape. I couldn't tell. I dialed Clara's number, praying she could talk privately. She answered on the first ring. Grandpa, are you okay? Are you safe? The urgency in her voice confirmed my worst fears. Whatever I'd escaped tonight had been real and dangerous. I'm in a taxi heading home. Clara, what was happening back there? Why did you warn me? A long pause. I could hear muffled party sound in the background, then a door closing. I overheard Mom and Dad talking yesterday. She whispered. They had some plan involving you and tonight's party. What kind of plan? They wanted to get you drunk and make you sign business documents. Something about transferring your company to Dad. The words hit me like a physical blow. My own son plotting to steal everything I'd built over 4 decades of backbreaking work. Are you certain about this, Clara? Grandpa. There were lawyers waiting upstairs in the guest bedroom. Mom kept checking the time, making sure you were drinking enough wine. Dad kept trying to get you to go upstairs for that tour of their renovations. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The expensive party, the constant drink refills, Scott's nervous energy, Eliza's calculating smiles. They'd orchestrated an elaborate trap, and I'd walked right into it. How much did you overhear? Enough to know they planned this right after your argument on Tuesday night. Mom said you were being selfish, keeping all that money when Dad needed it for his investments. My grip tightened on the phone. They call me selfish. Mom was really confident it would work. She said once you had enough drinks, you'd sign anything they put in front of you, something about how older people get confused when they drink. The casual cruelty of their assessment stung almost as much as the betrayal itself. They reduced me to a mark, an obstacle to overcome through deception and exploitation. Clara, listen to me carefully. You have to promise me something important. What? Don't tell your parents about this conversation. Did they say anything to you for telling me to go? No, I'll keep quiet. Dad asked me why I did it, and if I knew anything about tonight. I said, I told you to leave because it gets dangerous in our neighborhood late at night. Then I went in my room. They think I don't know about their plans. Promise me you'll be careful. I'll deal with the situation, but you have to stay safe. Yes, but what if they try something else? Mom was so sure it would work. You saved all my work tonight, Clara. I'm proud of the woman you're becoming. The taxi turned onto Oakwood Avenue, my house visible in the distance. I have to go, sweetheart. Thank you for being the only person in this family I can trust completely. I love you, Grandpa. I love you, too. Remember, if you need anything, call me. As I ended the call, one thought echoed in my mind. This betrayal would not go unanswered. The taxi's taillights disappeared around the corner. As I stood in my driveway, fishing for house keys with unsteady hands, the familiar weight of home felt different now. Not just a sanctuary, but a fortress under siege. Evening, Arthur. You're getting home late tonight. Doris Peterson's voice carried across the small gap between our properties. She sat on her front porch in her wicker chair, wrapped in a light shawl. Good evening, Doris. Just visiting Scott. I see you got your car fixed. New tires look good. I paused, keys halfway to the lock. How did you know about the tire problem? She was quiet for a moment, rocking gently. Then she stood and walked to the porch railing, close enough that we could speak without raising our voices. Well, I was sitting out here Tuesday evening. You know how I like the evening air. I saw something that troubled me, but wasn't sure if I should mention it. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the night temperature. What did you see, Doris? I think you should know what really happened to your tires. Arthur, I saw Scott leaving your house that night around 9:30. He walked around your car with something in his hand. Looked like he was checking each tire. Then he knelt down by each one, did something, and stood up, looking around to see if anyone was watching. The confirmation hit me like a sledgehammer. Not random vandalism, not neighborhood kids. My own son methodically destroying my property in a calculated act of revenge. Are you certain it was Scott, Doris? Arthur, I've known that boy since he was little. It was definitely him. This was right after I heard Ray's voices from your house. Not that I was listening intentionally, but sound carries on quiet evenings. She'd witnessed the entire sequence. Our argument, his departure, his immediate retaliation. The timeline painted a picture of premeditated malice that went far beyond desperate financial need. He didn't see me sitting here in the shadows, she continued. I keep my porch light off in the evenings. Easier to see the stars. I appreciate you telling me this, Doris. I wasn't sure if I should say anything. Family matters are delicate, and I don't like to interfere. But when I saw you getting those expensive new tires, I thought you should know the truth. First, the lawyer trap Clara had revealed. Now, confirmed tire vandalism from Doris Peterson. My son had launched a systematic campaign against me. Property damage followed by an elaborate scheme to steal my business. This wasn't desperation anymore. This was war. Let's keep this between us for now, I said, maintaining outward composure despite the rage building inside me. Of course, Arthur, but that boy needs to learn some respect for what you've built. You worked too hard to have someone, even family, tear it down out of spite. I nodded, touched by her loyalty, then walked toward my front door. Inside my house, I turned on every light and stood in my living room, surrounded by 40 years of honest work. Everything Scott had tried to steal tonight. Everything he'd already begun destroying through vandalism and betrayal. The systematic nature of his attacks, financial manipulation, followed by property damage, followed by an elaborate legal trap, revealed a calculated campaign rather than desperate impulses. My son had declared war on me. Time to respond accordingly. Dawn broke gray and overcast, matching the cold determination that had settled in my chest overnight. Now, at 7 a.m., I sat at my kitchen table with steaming coffee and a legal pad, ready to transform 40 years of business experience into a weapon. The emotional shock had crystallized into something far more dangerous: strategic clarity. Scott wanted to play hardball with a man who'd built an empire from nothing. It was time to remind him who taught him everything he knew about business. I moved to my study and pulled out the filing cabinet containing Scott's investment history. Each manila folder represented a lesson in financial irresponsibility, a pattern of poor judgment that would now serve as ammunition. The Coastal Plaza condo scheme, the quantum mining disaster, the gourmet cart venture with convicted felon, all documented with contracts, bank statements, and communication records. Scott had made 3 critical mistakes in his campaign against me. First, he'd underestimated my business connections. Second, he'd forgotten I possessed documentation of every failed venture he'd ever undertaken. Third, he'd assumed family loyalty would protect him from consequences. Wrong on all counts. I spread the investment documents across my desk chronologically. $75,000 lost in the condo deal. $50,000 evaporated in the mining scheme. $30,000 invested in the food cart with the embezzler. Each disaster had involved other co-investors, people who had trusted Scott based on a connection to my reputation. Dennis Hall had lost $25,000 in the condo project. Victor Chun had invested $35,000 in the mining scheme. Sandra Bell had contributed $20,000 to the food cart. They had all lost money because they trusted my son. More importantly, they all belonged to Riverton's tight-knit business community. Dennis served on the Chamber of Commerce. Victor chaired the local investment group. Sandra worked in financial services and valued transparency above all else. Perfect channels for information distribution. Phase 1 would expose Scott's pattern of financial mismanagement to his previous victims. Once they started comparing notes, the investment community would quickly understand they'd been systematically deceived. I opened my laptop and created an anonymous email account specifically for this operation. Professional courier services would handle document delivery. Timing would be crucial. Friday afternoon deployment to ensure weekend processing time and Monday consequences. The construction industry had taught me that reputation destruction required surgical precision, not emotional outbursts. The phone rang, startling me from my planning. Scott's name appeared on the caller ID. I let it ring. Whatever excuses or explanations he wanted to offer could wait. Right now, I had work to do. By 1 p.m. Friday afternoon, my study resembled a war room. 3 large manila envelopes set ready for courier delivery, each containing enough documented evidence to destroy what remained of Scott's financial credibility. The first package was addressed to Dennis Hall, who lost $25,000. Inside were photocopies of the investment contract, bank transfer records, and email communications showing Scott's awareness of the developer's imminent bankruptcy. The second envelope contained Victor Chen's mining catastrophe documentation, including the email thread where Scott admitted the supplier looked questionable, but insisted the returns were too good to pass up. Sandra Bell's package detailed the food cart disaster, including the contract Scott had signed that deliberately ignored background check requirements. Each envelope contained a simple cover letter. Information for your consideration regarding Scott Vance's business practices. Please review the attached documentation and draw your own conclusions. No accusations, no emotional appeals, just facts, dates, and financial records that spoke for themselves. I called Premier Courier Service and arranged same-day, anonymous delivery to all 3 addresses. The timing was perfect. By evening, 3 of Riverton's most connected business professionals would be reviewing documented evidence of Scott's systematic deception. Scott had picked the wrong people to defraud and the wrong father to betray. My phone rang again. It was Scott's third attempt to reach me. This time, I answered, "Dad, thank God. I've been trying to reach you since last night. I was busy, son." "About yesterday. Why did you listen, Clara, and leave? Did she tell you something?" "I was just tired. It's been a long week." "The party was great," I said neutrally. "Please thank Eliza for her hospitality." "Of course. Hey, maybe we could have lunch next week. I've been thinking about our conversation on Tuesday night, and I may have some new investment ideas that will solve your problems." More intrigue, more attempts at manipulation. "Let me check my schedule, and I'll call you back." "Sure, Dad. Love you. Goodbye, Scott." I hung up and checked the clock. The packages had been in transit for 45 minutes. By 6 o'clock, 3 very influential people would be reading very detailed accounts of my son's business failures. I let the evidence work. By Monday morning, the local business community would be buzzing with documented proof of Scott Vance's systematic deception. Phase 1 was in motion. Monday morning brought confirmation that my investor campaign had achieved its intended effect. The phone had rung 6 times before 8 a.m. business associates were asking carefully worded questions about recent information regarding Scott Vance's investment history. Word was spreading through Riverton's business community exactly as I planned. Phase 1, complete success. Time for Phase 2. I settled into my study with fresh coffee and opened a new manila folder labeled Eliza Reed Professional Standing. If Scott was a desperate gambler, Eliza was a calculating mastermind who'd orchestrated the birthday party trap. She deserved equal consequences. Eliza worked as a senior client relationship manager at Summit Wealth Group, handling high net worth accounts that required absolute trust and professional integrity. Her position depended entirely on her reputation for ethical behavior and sound judgment. Perfect vulnerability. I spent the morning making discreet inquiries through my business network. Construction companies often work with financial consultants, giving me legitimate reasons to ask questions about local firms and their personnel. The information proved illuminating. Eliza had been purchasing designer clothing, expensive jewelry, and luxury items well beyond their supposed means. Either Scott had been lying about their finances, or Eliza had income sources he didn't know about. Both possibilities served my purposes. I drafted a professional ethics complaint to Summit Wealth Group's Human Resources Department, carefully documenting the conflict of interest between Eliza's role as a trusted financial advisor and her family's systematic attempt to defraud an elderly client through legal manipulation. The complaint highlighted how someone responsible for protecting clients' financial interests had personally participated in planning to steal my business through fraudulent legal documents and alcohol-induced incompetence. I included documentation of the birthday party expenses, catering, alcohol, decorations that suggested financial resources inconsistent with the struggling family finances Eliza undoubtedly portrayed to colleagues and clients. The anonymous package went out Monday afternoon via professional courier. By Tuesday morning, Summit Wealth Group will be conducting an internal investigation of their senior relationship manager's professional ethics and client trust violations. My phone rang as I sealed the envelope. Unknown number. I let it ring, but made note of the time. Scott was getting desperate, calling from different phones to try reaching me. Good. Desperation led to mistakes, and mistakes created opportunities. The systematic destruction of both conspirators was proceeding exactly as planned. Tuesday afternoon brought the sound I'd been expecting. Car doors slamming in my driveway with unnecessary force, followed by rapid footsteps on my front walkway. Scott and Eliza had come calling together, unified in their desperation. The aggressive knocking confirmed their emotional state before I opened the door. Both stood on my porch, faces flushed with anger and panic. Scott's usual confidence had evaporated, replaced by the look of a cornered animal. Eliza's calculated composure had cracked, revealing the raw fury beneath her polished exterior. "We need to talk," Scott said, pushing past me into the house. "Now." "We know what you've been doing, Arthur," Eliza added, following her husband into my living room. I closed the door calmly and gestured toward the couch. "I've been expecting this conversation. Please sit down. Don't pretend innocence." Scott snapped, remaining standing. "You destroyed my business relationships with those anonymous letters. Dennis, Victor, and Sandra all got the same information packet about investments you funded years ago." Eliza's professional anger was more controlled, but equally intense. "My employer received an ethics complaint yesterday. HR is conducting a full investigation of my client relationship practices. Someone sent detailed information about our family financial planning." I settled into my leather armchair, the same spot where this entire conflict had begun a week ago. Those complaints contained only factual information. Investors deserve to know about documented patterns of failure. Factual. Scott's voice rose. "You deliberately sabotaged my reputation." I shared truth. I replied evenly. "If truth damages your reputation, perhaps the problem lies with your actions, not my disclosure." Eliza leaned forward aggressively. "You're destroying my career over a family disagreement. Let's discuss what really happened," I said, reaching for the folder I prepared for this moment. "You plan to steal 40 years of my work through fraud and manipulation." I opened the file, revealing documentation of their systematic betrayal. "Clara told me about the lawyers waiting upstairs at your birthday party. Doris Peterson saw Scott puncture my tires after our argument. This wasn't desperation. This was premeditated theft." The color drained from both their faces as they realized the scope of my knowledge. Tuesday argument about money. I continued methodically. Wednesday morning, tire vandalism and retaliation. Thursday evening, an elaborate trap involving alcohol, lawyers, and legal documents designed to transfer my business assets. Scott's defiance crumbled. Dad, you don't understand the pressure we're under. I understand perfectly. I interrupted. You decided that stealing from your father was easier than building your own success. Eliza orchestrated a sophisticated fraud scheme using her professional knowledge of elder financial manipulation. This is still family, Eliza protested weakly. You stopped being family when you planned to rob me. I replied, every consequence you're facing now is earned through your own choices. Scott slumped into the couch, finally understanding the completeness of his defeat. Eliza remained rigid, calculating whether any damage control was possible. The investors will never trust you again. Scott, your business reputation is finished. I continued. Eliza, your professional ethics investigation will likely end your career. These are natural consequences of attempted theft and fraud. What about Clara? Eliza asked desperately. Clara's future remained secure. Unlike her parents, she chose to protect family instead of exploiting it. Her college education and life prospects are unaffected by your consequences. I stood, indicating the conversation was over. You declared war on me through systematic betrayal. I responded with systematic truth-telling. Justice isn't revenge. It's accountability. They left without another word, walking to their car with a defeated posture of people who'd gambled everything and lost. I watched from my porch as they drove away. The phone rang as their taillights disappeared. Clara's name was on the caller ID. Hi, sweetheart. Grandpa, are you okay? I heard Mom and Dad talking about some kind of investigation. Everything's fine, Clara. Justice has been served, and your future is safe. I love you, Grandpa. I love you, too. 40 years of honest work remain protected in honest hands. Thank you for watching.